So Mike Walsh, we both end up doing a lot of work with the cloud as well as our on-prem work.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious to hear your perspective. What are some of the benefits, or why would you go to the cloud versus
Sure.
using an on-prem data store?
Yeah, so whether it's IaaS, so infrastructure as a service, where you get a virtual machine in the cloud, or PaaS, platform as a service, you actually get SQL Server or Postgres or MySQL. There's lots of reasons to go to the cloud. I'm sure you have plenty too, but the few that come to mind are it's that elastic scale, right? So I have some clients that do they do their retail, and they can tell you when their busy times are, but they can't tell you how busy they're going to be. They can't forecast, right? So Black Friday for a shoe retailer, it scales right up. So they have to build their server for the worst case, and then it sits there with all this slack capacity for 9 months, 10 months of the year. So they're paying for their high yield time instead of paying for paying for what they need. And with the cloud, you can do elastic scale, which means you can, with I don't know, what is it, 3 clicks, maybe 4 clicks, and 2 minutes or 3 minutes of change time, you can change your server capacity. Isn't that pretty amazing? And you can build scripts. So there's a lot of people that do things with various, with PowerShell or different cloud scripting tools that will actually watch your performance and automatically do these things. So that's a huge reason. What's the reason you can think of? And that's just one. Give me one, and we'll just back and forth. What's one you have in mind?
So one of my favorites is time to market.
Sure.
So you think about the types of things. If you provision a new server, you install SQL Server on it.
Yep.
Just the amount of time that you have to go through. You have to provision. You have to get a
Sure.
PO for the hardware.
Yep.
That's got to go through all of its layers of approvals, which can be weeks or months in some cases, depending on your organization.
Yep.
You have to get it. You have to install it. You have to
Sure.
install the OS. You have to install SQL Server.
Yep.
And if you're using Azure in particular, but really any cloud vendor is going to support some level of automation. In just a handful of clicks, you can create your own machine in the cloud, either a virtual machine or a PaaS instance of SQL Server. Yeah. And in under an hour, you can go from no database to having a database online and ready to accept queries, ready to build data warehouse or whatever you're building on it.
You're wrong. I disagree. It's actually under 10 minutes, really.
Okay. Worst case scenario.
Yeah. Let's say under an hour. Yeah. So I guess you're right, but it's even quicker.
Well, you could learn, so you could really figure out where to click and do all that in an hour. So if you've never done it before, you configure your machine or your SQL Server instance if you're doing a PaaS version.
Yep.
And in just a matter of minutes, it's up and running and ready for queries.
Yeah. The other thing I like is there's a lot of availability built in, right? So by we just kind of gave a quote to a customer, right, about building an availability group, and it's going to be I'm not sure exactly where we're lining up, but maybe 50 hours, maybe 60 hours a time. And that's because they actually have a good networking team already. They have a good storage team. So if they didn't have that, we may be looking at 80 or 100 hours to build this. Well, in the cloud, so I'm talking PaaS here, but it's really true with IaaS too. In the cloud, you automatically get some high availability. It's within one region. So Microsoft will give you basically 3 copies out there. That's sort of behind the scenes of your database. But if you want to have geo redundancy, you shouldn't click a button. You should actually use PowerShell, but you can just click a button. Literally, go to a map, and you pick on the map where you want your DR to be. So let's say you're in the East Coast region. You want to have DR on the West Coast. Click on the West Coast region. Press OK. Agree to spend a little bit more money per month. It's going to cost you something, but 80 hours of my time is going to cost you something too, plus the licenses. And in about 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, you'll get a little alert on the screen saying you're done. You now have an availability group. And you can also check the box to have a read-only copy. So you can now have an availability group that you can read off of.
So in the case that we had recently, like the 2 hurricanes that came up, so we're in the Texas area right now. We had Harvey that came through, and then Irma came through Florida more recently. If you had a data center, whether it's a virtual data center or an on-prem data center, and hurricane comes through, you have to worry about what's going on in that region. But specifically around Azure, if you want to configure geo redundancy and say I'm going to have a data center in the Southeast and one in the Pacific Northwest, you could spread that out where a local disaster like that wouldn't take down your entire infrastructure.
It's nice too. From a financial perspective, you're taking all these costs that are capital expenses today, and big, expensive, hard to do capital expenses, and you're turning into operating expenses. So like you said about the time to market, it's not just time to market onboarding. But how many companies out there are startups, right? How many companies do you have for clients, and do I have for clients that are small companies that, they saw a need someplace and they built software and they want to try something out. So you can build this trial in the cloud and get it up there, and and very quickly have it up. And if you realize, well, that was a really bad business idea, you don't have all these servers to go have a yard sale for. You just stop paying a monthly fee. So it's pretty nice.
And again, you can do that in just a matter of minutes or hours.
Yeah, there's lots more reasons, but those are some of the big ones for like the CIOs and the managers and directors to really think about, because it's just, you know, it's there's reasons not to. Maybe another video we can talk about that, but it's almost like most environments out there. You know, a question really for you who's watching is why aren't you in the cloud, right? Why don't you have something out there? You know, it's not that hard to do. So, you know, whether it's just starting with phase 1, like putting a backup out there, then phase 2, maybe putting a DR site, maybe using something like Azure Site Recovery to have a cloud hot spare of your environment, and there's so many tools to make it easy. You know, the non-techies could do it.
Yeah,
you know? I mean, you shouldn't. You should still hire us techies sometimes, right? It's good to have money, but it's that easy. So
yeah, it is. So there are some reasons why you might not want to go to cloud. Some workloads aren't a good suit for that.
Yep.
We'll talk a little more about that in a future video. But there's really a lot of distinct advantages to using the cloud for some of your infrastructure and some of your workloads.
Yeah. And it's not for everybody, right? So that's the big thing too. Then we'll stop harassing everybody. But you don't have to be all cloud. You know, it used to be. Remember Microsoft first came out with it. It seemed
all
like,
in.
It's like, oh no, you have to be in the cloud completely, and we're not going to support you or even talk to you if you're not. But now it's cloud hybrid, right? And that's what they say. And it's true. I don't know any, well, actually I know a couple clients who are all in the cloud, but I know more that are hybrid and more that are staying hybrid.
I can count on one hand the number of clients that I know are pure cloud.
Sure.
Most everybody is doing, if they're doing anything cloud related, they are doing some sort of a hybrid where part of it's on-prem, part of it's in the cloud.
Yeah, and that's changing a little bit, you know, like a lot of like software as a service companies, there's no reason to have infrastructure. But, you know, like most companies will need some locally, so.
Yeah, and most companies start small, so the cloud lets you grow up from there.
Yeah, you grow and you pay. You pay as you need. You don't pay for all your licenses and all your capacity now. You pay for it as you grow.
Exactly.
Which I like.
All right. So just a few reasons to consider going to the cloud. Again, we'll talk a little more about some reasons maybe not to go to the cloud, and then we'll talk about some hybrid scenarios next in a later video.
Perfect. Thanks, Tim.